Hello and welcome to the book launch of the Yoga of Rehab. And this is a wonderful book, Yoga of Rehab, the 12 Sutras for Transcending Addiction by our author, Anjali Thalcherkar. Anjali has a very remarkable story and a very remarkable background. She's a yoga teacher, a healthcare practitioner. She has a PhD in integrative medicine, a degree in psychology. So she's a psychologist, a yogi, and somebody who's been through a life journey that's really very germane to this topic of the yoga of rehab. Really about so many people today in today's world are dealing with addictions of many kinds, and this is a book that sets you out on a journey of how do you really transcend that addiction. And so let me welcome Anjali onto the studio. Welcome, Anjali.
Hi, Sankrant. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm so excited to see the book finally. It's been a long journey and a long time coming, so it's a very exciting moment.
Yes, it took a while, like any process of giving birth. This has taken at least as long or more. So went through. So without much ado, I'm going to just start off and show you the book. Anjali still doesn't have it in her hands, but I do. It's come fresh off the press, and this is the Yoga of Rehab. I can hold it up, and you can do the clapping, Anjali.
Yes.
Okay, so this is it's just beautifully. I just love how the book has turned out. It's hardback, hardcover. I've always believed that in the digital age with all the ebooks and all this medium, the book as a physical object should be a pleasure to hold. And it's nice. I can run my hands on the cover because it's embossed. The title is embossed, so I can actually feel the title and read it. So tell us a little bit about what is the, before I get into the story, tell us just an overview. What do you mean by the yoga of rehab?
Well, when you think of rehab, it's a rehabilitation process. So something that's happening internally, transforming you. And part of that process, a very big part of my process, was yoga, the practice of yoga, the yogic path. So essentially transforming oneself through yoga.
So yoga as a practice that helps you in this journey of, I know you don't like the word recovery or I know that's a typical word that's used, recovery, and transcending. What would you say? What is this process?
Well, I can speak from my personal experience of going through different phases of being what I felt was in recovery and then coming to a point of self-realization where I felt like I had transcended it. So a point of going beyond, going one step further. A lot of the initial part of the book, the memoir section, talks about my rehab process of going to different rehabs, what that entailed and the inner work and, all the emotions that came up throughout. So as I progressed, and especially after my doctoral studies, it was about going one step further.
Well, it's really, it's a real hero's journey, like your whole story is so much like the archetype of the hero's journey. You have a base state, you go through these difficulties, and then you transcend them, and then there are, in some ways superpowers emerge in the process. So, as I said in the introduction, Anjali is such an inspiration. She's delved deep into the study of yoga and also delved deep into holistic healthcare as well as into psychology with a PhD. But the journey was not always smooth. The journey of life. So Tell us a little bit about the story. How did you even get into all of this?
Well, I don't think anyone's journey is really smooth, and that's part of the whole process of transformation. We don't have those ups and downs, the contrast. So, I mean, my story, it starts, I was in the depths of a deep addiction, and the various tools I used, I was introduced to conventional medicine initially and going to different treatment centers and all the therapies they use throughout. And then at some point in my life, I was lucky enough to be introduced to the Art of Living Foundation, and I learned the Sudarshan Kriya breathing technique, and I also began practicing yoga. And that was really where the game change was for me in my process of recovering. So without going into too much detail, there's a lot of juicy details in the memoir section, but it really chronicles my whole story from adolescence, from how it began, from how it progressed, and from, how eventually I found my way out.
And when I read the book, and I was fortunate to read it a couple of times right from the beginning, being involved in it. There is, of course, the whole journey of coming out of addiction, and that was an extreme case of addiction. But I feel that all of us have some addiction in some way. So it might not get to the extreme state where we are on the verge of killing ourselves, but we can get addicted to our phones. We can get addicted to. There is so many kind of impressions that are habitual patterns of behavior that are not really serving us. And
yes.
And so how do you even look at addiction? And in that sense, I feel this book is for everyone.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's so refreshing to have that perspective, because that's the exact perspective that makes you sort of normalize it a bit, instead of making it something that you're fighting against, that you're struggling against. If we can really see how prevalent it is in society to become entangled, the mind to become entangled in anything. And, working in the field of addiction, we deal with not just chemical and substance abuse, but also behavioral addictions, which you mentioned, today's day and age, the internet, a huge one. I mean, I'm sure if you were to try to not be on your phone for a few days, you might be experiencing some withdrawal. Exactly. Lightly, it's I didn't want to say the word, but lightly, yeah. It boils. That's what it boils down to, is withdrawal, because it's still acting on the same neurotransmitters in the brain. So if you look at it that way, anything that you're getting that hit of dopamine from, whether it be an object, a person, a substance, it's going to create those same neural processes and reactions. So if we really look at now, how can we manage the mind and not get into this entangled state and find equanimity and balance in our lives?
Right. So in that sense, it's really a book for everybody. But I want to also dive into the specificity, without sort of brushing aside the very serious consequences when it is the chemical abuse, or when it is that pattern where literally you will do anything, including steal or lie, or in some cases even hurt other people, because you have to get that fix. And coming and seeing that state and being able to get out of it is not a simple matter for anyone really who's gone into it.
No, it's not. It takes effort. It takes a lot of work. It's and it depends on what type of drug it is and how long it's been going on. But it's not easy, and I empathize with anyone who struggles with it. And that's basically the heart of this book, and why I was inspired to write it. And because there is a way out. So I want to still emphasize the possibility of a solution.
Right. And it does, the way that you show it also, it also resonates with me on another way, which is that, from the yogic Hindu Vedic perspective, in some senses, the root of it is are getting attached, are grabbing onto some object and thinking that is real, you know. So all those, I mean, it's layers of illusion of one way or the other, which is it is an extreme form, it is an addiction. But at some level, even the world is an addiction, because it's like everything which is grabbing our mind, and we think that's what's going to give us joy, right? Or it's a hook.
Right.
So how do you respond to that in terms of how it draws from that tradition?
Well, a lot of the book is based in the Vedic tradition and understanding principles like Maya, like illusion, and what we're really up against in this world. So it's just the very fact of knowing that, of bringing that awareness, of raising that awareness that we're not this physical body, we're much more. And then there can be a sense of detachment from it all.
Right. So taking one step back into awareness,
Yes.
is really the path in some senses. And of course, there's beautiful sutras. There are the 12 sutras for transcending addiction as we go into it. And I don't want to give away all the juiciness and the yoga poses and the mantras and all of it that's in there. But one of the things that it struck me is that there is this 12-step program for de-addiction as well. And how does this relate to the 12-step program? Is it parallel to it? Is it just its own thing? Or how did we need another book, and why did we need it?
Well, I want to acknowledge the 12-step path because it's where I started. And this book wouldn't be there without that work that I did in those programs. Where I'm coming from is looking at medicine from a completely different paradigm. And the book also talks about Ayurveda and how Ayurveda views disease. And so if we're shifting now, I'm shifting in the book, talking more about a different model of medicine and of treating addiction. So this book is, I want to say, coming into a new age of how we can see disease, how we treat people in a more humanistic context, understanding that we're not flawed, we're not diseased, we're actually very whole and complete. And so taking it from that perspective, this is the difference in this book.
Definitely. So it's bringing in that gaze of the sort of the Eastern perspective, the Vedic perspective, and bringing that, which I don't know it has been done so systematically. So it's really been a need, which is, I suddenly remembered there is this really interesting story of Neem Karoli Baba that I don't know if you heard. There was these two Harvard psychologists who were doing experiments in psychedelics, and then they get kicked out of Harvard. They land up in India, and they go to this Saint Neem Karoli Baba, and so one of them has a substantial amount of LSD, and Neem Karoli Baba just consumes it all, and this guy is like waiting for him to keel over and die because this would kill an elephant. And Baba says, you know what, I've already been to all these states, so it doesn't really do anything for me. And it was so striking because in some senses, some part of the addiction is also a search for transcendence, but we don't have the tools, we don't have the right tools to do it. So the chemical is trying to, there is a search there somewhere, but it's just taking on a path which is life destroying rather than life affirming.
Yeah, it's the same search. It's whether we're going for that search in a correct way or a maladaptive way, a healthy way, right, or an unhealthy way. Right. Ultimately, there's maybe, depending on each situation is different, but an internal void that we're seeking to fill.
Right.
So you can either find that through an external object, substance, anything outside of yourself, or you can turn inward and you can find that you're already everything that you are searching for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that really, the book is really, in some senses, the path to that wholeness, and the healing. And it's very interesting, the word wholeness and healing actually have the same root. The original root is to heal, and to be whole is to heal. and
Mm-hmm.
and so the whole journey, as I see it in the book, is this path towards being whole and finding that that anchor within oneself.
Yes. And
Rather,
already knowing that you are whole, you are
right,
whole.
right,
So it's coming back to that. It's a return to self.
right. It's a return to self, return to knowing that wholeness.
Yes.
Where there was a separation from it. So how did you find that your work in academia, in terms of, so you brought a lot of life experience to it, and so there's two other streams that come into it. One is your experience as a yoga practitioner, and then as a yoga teacher of some modalities, and then also from academia, your study in psychology. So let's talk a little bit about both those streams and how they impacted both your life and the writing of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had enough life experience to fall back on, but really getting the doctoral degree in integrative medicine allowed me to take it one step further in looking at the research and conducting my own research, which was qualitative in nature. So it was bringing research in to support these theories.
Right. So sort of, in some ways, blending the left with the right, the left brain with the right brain. Bringing sort of the scientific. There's the experiential part, and then there's the intuitive part, and then there's also bringing in the scientific. And then how about your journey on the path of yoga, and how was that? How was that part of the writing of the book and your experience as well?
Well, yoga was one of my primary tools. Even early in recovery, I started practicing yoga twice a day, and so it expedited the detox process. It just accelerated that ability to recover. So it was a very integral part of my whole process. And then also studying it and becoming a yoga teacher, I just fell in love with yoga. So I wanted to go further. I wanted to study it. I wanted to become a teacher. And then that allowed me to understand the yogic path even more, knowing it more than just physical asanas, the 8-limb path, the beauty of it. And it's such a total package in itself. And you just see in the world today, it's taken off. And especially today, like, what a great day to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
And just honoring yoga all around the world and all the benefits, because I'm just one story. There's so many other people that probably have their own personal testimonies for how it's improved their life, health-wise or otherwise.
Absolutely. In fact, we chose to launch it on Yoga Day, and I figured, there'll be so many events where people are doing the physical poses, and there's so many people, doing the asanas, and so much of the West, the common layperson's understanding of yoga is still only about asana, and bringing forth both a book on yoga as well as a journey and an author who's dived deep into it and used it in a very, very contemporary problem. If I look at the scale of the problem, uh, going beyond what we typically look at rehab, which is drug addiction, but going beyond, or chemical dependency. But if you look at, nearly a fifth of the U.S. is on some kind of psychiatric medication, right? So that it's a huge segment of the population, and there's probably even more that are not on medication but are experiencing depression, are experiencing
Mhm.
addictions of some kind. So really, this journey is for everybody in that sense as well.
Yeah, it really is. Yoga is for everybody, no matter what level you're at. And right now, you know, with what we've just gone through last year, I mean, we went through such a collective trauma. And so the rates of depression did go up. The rates of substance misuse did go up. A lot of that is due to stress, increased stress, and an inability to manage that stress. So it is very timely. I feel like this book is very timely and it can help anyone.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I can relate to that. I myself just emerged from COVID. In fact, this is my first public appearance
Yes.
after COVID. So, and I definitely thank pranayam and mantras. I was
Mm.
hospitalized for 12 days, and all
Oh.
12 days I listened to at least 2 to 2.5 hours of mantras. And not only did I listen to it, everybody in the ward got to listen to it because I was in a public ward with a lot of people. So, but that was kind of my pillar. It was a difficult
Mm-hmm.
time. There was a lot of lung damage, and some parts of it were touch and go. But those mantras were something that just provided the strength to me to say, Om Triambakam Yajamahe, and then you say that Mrityor Moksha Mamritat. It's
Mm.
just like a Urvarukmeva Bandhana. It's just like this fruit releases from the branch. This is how just this
Mm.
we are this attachment to the world. It just kind of drops, and
Yeah,
so
that's
that
a.
that
The,
feeling, that knowing was really all of my strength through this,
mm.
that allowed me to go through it without having depression and without having feeling that the burden of the world is on me. And of course, so many blessings and well wishers from around the world. um, and yeah, so that's the power of of blessing, of prana, of the universal force that connects us.
Yes, and it's like medicine can come in any form. That
Right.
that was a very powerful form of medicine. So yeah, it was so good that you had that to lean on and had that faith, and then just kept that pillar strong.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, for something like COVID, where if you really are severely caught with it, there is no, you don't know, nobody really knows has a sure shot cure. Everybody's kind of going through trial and error. Even the medical system is still dealing with it, coping with it. So I went through all the pathies, Ayurveda, naturopathy, allopathy, any, sound healing, whatever works. When you're in that situation, it really comes down to whatever is going to help. I'm going to try it. Let's see what happens. And
Mm.
this is what I feel so much in this book also, because it really is a book that tells the story and leads one from this point of deep despair on the one place where you don't know what's going to work, nothing is going to work. You try something and then it doesn't work, you fall back, and then there is the cycle of despair. And then it shows, I really love how the cover has turned out, where there's this light, that there is this
Mm-hmm.
darkness, but there's that light that starts to shine through. So even in that feeling of despair, there is this light, like that mantra one can hold on to.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, in this state of hopelessness, there's always a speck of light. There's always hope. So,
Yes, absolutely, and that's really how I see the book as well. It's not only about hope, but it's a definite process, it's a definite path, and it's a way forward out of whatever
mm.
predicament of addiction that one may be in. And
Yeah. Each of the 12 chapters or the 12 sutras lean on a spiritual principle. So it's, for example, surrender or faith, And it's important to have those principles, those real strong, that strong foundation. But then there's also work. There's also real life work that has to be done in changing patterns. So there's a behavioral component as well, which the book has some activities. Each chapter has an exercise that you go through. And yeah, I'm just excited to share it with the world, and hopefully, you know, many people can benefit from it.
Yes, I definitely like the very, it's kind of a workbook, and it's got like deep wisdom, but it's not like out there. It's very, very practice oriented. Like,
Yes.
this is what you can do. I'm not just going to give you some philosophy. You know, I'm actually going to lead you. I'm going to take you by the hand. You know, it has that feeling of somebody holding the hand and guiding through the process, which is really what's needed there. You know, when you're at that point. So wonderful, wonderful chatting with you, Anjali, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations coming forward. The book I have is the Yoga of Rehab, the Yoga of Rehab, the 12 Sutras for Transcending Addiction, and it is now available on GarudaBooks.com. And if you are international, you can write to international@GarudaBooks.com. That's the email, international@garudabooks.com, and we can ship internationally. It will be available in international stores and websites also in the next month or so. So very, very soon it'll have wide availability, but right now you can still get a hand on the copy. If you're in India, you can order it right away from the GarudaBooks.com website. If you're international, just go to international. Just write an email to international@garudabooks.com and we'll send one to you. So thank you so much, Anjali, and we hope to see more work coming from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was so nice to connect with you.
Namaste.